History is often remembered through loud speeches, powerful victories, and unforgettable public moments. But sometimes, the most important moments happen in silence. Late April 1945. Adolf Hitler is living through his final night. Above ground, Berlin is collapsing. Buildings are burning, explosions shake the streets, and the sound of war fills the air. But deep underground, inside a concrete bunker, everything feels different. Time slows down, the noise becomes distant, and reality becomes impossible to ignore. For the first time in years, he is not giving orders. He is waiting. The biggest problem in front of him is simple and unavoidable. The war is lost. The empire he built is falling apart. The city around him is being taken piece by piece, and there is no escape left. In this moment of total collapse, he makes a decision that feels strange, almost unreal. He asks for a wedding. Why now? Because this is not about love. This is about control. When everything else is slipping away, he wants to control the ending. He wants his final hours to follow a structure, a ritual, a marriage, a written statement, a planned death. In his mind, even the end must be organized. Eva Braun had been part of his life for years, but always in the shadows. She was never presented to the public, never mentioned in speeches. She lived close to power, but invisible to the world. Her struggle was different. She wasn't fighting a war. She was fighting silence. She could have left. Many people tried to escape as the situation worsened, but she chose to stay. Not because it was safe, not because it made sense, but because of loyalty, the kind that ignores reality. And that is where the emotional weight of this moment becomes clear. This is not a romantic story. It is a story about decisions made under pressure, about people holding on to something even when everything is collapsing. The wedding itself is quiet. There are no celebrations, no music, no joy.
Just a small room, a few witnesses, and the distant sound of destruction above. Papers are signed, words are spoken. And just like that, after years of silence, the relationship becomes official, only hours before the end. It feels less like a beginning and more like a conclusion. After the ceremony, another problem rises: legacy. He sits down to dictate his final political statement. This is his last chance to explain himself, to define how he will be remembered. But instead of accepting responsibility, he shifts the blame. Others are accused. Mistakes are denied. This reveals something important. Even at the very end, facing total defeat, he cannot fully confront reality. And this is where the deeper lesson begins. Sometimes, the hardest thing for a person is not losing power. It is accepting the truth. As the night continues, the bunker becomes quieter. The people inside move carefully, speak softly, and avoid eye contact. Everyone understands what is coming, but no one says it out loud. Above them, the world is ending. Below them, a different kind of ending is being prepared. One built on control, denial, and the inability to let go. And this is only the beginning of the final hours. Morning arrives, but it brings no clarity, only heavier tension. Inside the bunker, the air feels thick, almost difficult to breathe. There is no sunlight, no fresh air, only concrete walls and the constant echo of distant explosions. Above ground, Berlin is collapsing faster with every hour. But below, something else is breaking. Trust. Adolf Hitler walks slowly through the narrow corridors. This used to be a place of command, where decisions shaped the fate of nations. Now, it feels like a closed box, cut off from reality. The maps on the walls are still there. Lines, borders, positions of armies. But none of it matters anymore. The biggest problem now is not strategy. It is the realization that strategy has failed.
For someone who built everything on control, this moment is unbearable. And when control disappears, fear takes its place. This fear shows itself in a shocking way. He calls for cyanide capsules, poison that will be used for his final act. But there is a problem. He no longer trusts anyone. Not his officers, not his doctors, not even the system that once obeyed him without question. So he decides to test the poison. Not on an object, not in a lab, on his own dog. Blondie had been one of the few living beings he trusted completely. Loyal, quiet, always by his side. But now, even that trust is sacrificed. The capsule is given. Within seconds, the dog dies. No reaction, no emotion. Just confirmation. The poison works. This moment reveals a deeper collapse. When a person begins to destroy even the last things they trust, it means they have already accepted the end. But it doesn't stop there. Other animals in the bunker are also killed, not out of necessity, but out of a mindset. Nothing should be left behind. No trace, no memory, no connection to what once existed. This is no longer about survival. It is about erasing everything. As the day continues, the people around him face their own decisions. Some still hope for escape. They bring ideas, possible routes, last chances. Leave the city, disguise yourself, there is still time. But the answer is always the same. No. For the first time, the problem is not external. It is internal. He is no longer trying to win. He is choosing how to lose. And that changes everything. Because when a leader stops looking for solutions, everyone else is left without direction. Some begin to prepare for escape quietly. They gather what little they can carry: documents, food, small personal items. They know the risks. Outside, the streets are full of chaos. Soldiers, fire, destruction. But staying feels just as dangerous. Inside one small room, a different kind of conversation happens. Eva Braun sits calmly, almost unnaturally calm. There's no panic in her voice, no visible fear in her actions. She has already made her decision. She will not leave. He gives her one last chance, a simple option. Go, survive, start again somewhere else. But she refuses. This moment highlights a powerful and uncomfortable truth. Sometimes people stay not because they cannot leave, but because they choose not to see another path. Loyalty, in its extreme form, can become a trap. As evening approaches, the bunker becomes quieter again. One by one, final goodbyes begin. No long speeches, no dramatic scenes, just handshakes, short words, and silence. Thank you. That is all. The people who once stood around power now slowly step away from it. And in that silence, a realization becomes clear to everyone. This is no longer a place of leadership. It is a place of endings. Later that night, the doors close behind him and Eva. The outside world fades completely. The sounds of war continue, but inside everything is focused on one final preparation. Because the biggest problem is no longer fear of defeat. It is the certainty of what comes next. And by the time the next day fully begins, there will be no decisions left to make. Afternoon approaches,
But inside the bunker, time feels frozen. There is no clear line between minutes and hours anymore. The outside world is loud. Constant explosions, gunfire, collapsing buildings. But inside, everything is controlled, quiet, almost unnatural. Adolf Hitler sits one last time with a small group of people who remain. No speeches, no motivation, no plans, only short instructions. And those instructions reveal the final problem he is trying to solve. Not survival, but what happens after death. He gives a clear order. His body must not be captured. It must be destroyed completely. This fear is not random. He knows what happened to Benito Mussolini, how his body was publicly displayed, humiliated, turned into a symbol of defeat. For a man who built his entire identity on power and image, that outcome is unacceptable.
So even now, at the edge of death, he is trying to control perception. That is the final illusion of power. He dresses simply, no grand uniform, no symbols of authority, just a plain military jacket. The image of a leader is gone. What remains is a man preparing for his last act. Eva Braun prepares as well, with calm precision. No panic, no hesitation. Her decision was made long ago, and now she follows it without question. Before everything ends, there is one last routine, a final meal. Bread, tea, silence. It is not about hunger, it is about structure. When everything else is collapsing, small routines create a sense of order. But everyone in that room understands the truth. This is not a normal moment. This is a ritual before death. Then come the final goodbyes. One by one, he meets the remaining staff. Handshakes, eye contact, short words. No emotion, no reflection. Just a quiet acknowledgement that everything is over. Some people cry. Others stand frozen. But he remains the same, distant, controlled, disconnected. At this point, the biggest internal shift has already happened. There is no more denial, only execution of the final decision. He and Eva enter a private room. The door closes. Outside, a few people wait in silence. No one speaks. No one moves. Time slows down again. Then a single sound breaks the silence. A gunshot. Nothing more. When the door is opened, everything becomes real. He is gone. Eva lies beside him, motionless. The man who once controlled millions, who shaped the course of history, is now just a lifeless figure in a quiet room. And suddenly, all the power disappears. No speeches can change this. No orders can reverse it. Power, once absolute, ends in complete stillness. But the story does not end there. The next problem begins immediately, fulfilling his final order. The bodies are carried outside into a damaged garden above the bunker. The situation is chaotic. Explosions continue. The ground shakes. Time is limited. Fuel is poured. Fire is started. The flames rise, but not perfectly. The conditions are bad. The destruction around them makes everything unstable. Even in death, nothing goes exactly as planned. This becomes symbolic. A man who tried to control everything, life, war, people, history, cannot fully control even this final moment. The bodies burn, but not completely. Inside the bunker, the remaining people sit in silence. No one celebrates. No one speaks of the future. Because there is no future left in that place. Leadership is gone. Direction is gone.
Only reality remains. Above ground, the city continues to fall. Soon, soldiers will arrive. The bunker will be discovered. The story will spread across the world. But in that exact moment, inside those walls, everything feels empty. And this is where the final lesson becomes clear. Power built on fear, control, and blind loyalty does not collapse loudly. It collapses quietly, not with a final battle, but with a single decision made in isolation. And in the end, the greatest problem was never the war outside. It was the inability to face the truth within.